Hello, thank you for joining me on Nuggets of Wisdom. Uh, I am your speaker, Charles Musakanda, and I'm very grateful and honored that you've taken the time to grow together as we mature and edify one another in this journey of life. Today's talk is on training up a child. We all know the passage, the verse from Proverbs 22, verse 6, train up a child in the way that they should go. And when they are older, they will not depart from it. You see that's indicative of the fact that God knows what He has instilled in the child, and for someone to not depart from something, it means they have an interest in it. They are comfortable with it. They love it. It's part of them. It's natural. It naturally comes to them. It's part of their day-to-day life. So there's no need to leave and to depart from it. So when God says train up a child, that's because God knows what He has instilled in the child. And when you train them, they will not leave it because they love it. It's part of them. It's who they are. It's part of their fabric. Now, we understand train up a child as just in a spiritual context, which is good because it is important that our children know to walk with God in a godly way, to have a relationship with Adonai, with Elohim, El Shaddai, Jehovah Jireh, our provider, Redeemer, and our Savior. That is all wonderful. In addition to that, I'd like to implore you to think outside of that limitation and understand that training up a child dives into other realms. Maybe something that your preacher or your pastor has not said to you before. Maybe something that has not come to mind when you heard of that verse or read it for yourself. And I would like to expand it by saying this. We ought to train up our children in a way that they should go beyond spiritually, but also physically, to take care of their health so that they have longevity of life and to enjoy life. You can have everything in this life, but without health, you have nothing. And to train them to walk, to grow emotionally. So physically, emotionally, so that they know to balance themselves in this perverse world where things change. People are moody. Some have bipolar. Some have PTSD. Some just have a bad day. Some just feel like it. Some are just miserable that way. And our children have to have that emotional balance to be able to handle that and to also know how to respond to that, to have the right tone and the right attitude, to know how to use their pleases and thank yous, to know when to smile, to know when to mourn with those who mourn. Emotional intelligence, to train up our children to have mental intelligence, train them to have that aptitude, to have acumen, to know how to adapt and grow and be dynamic together with the ever dynamic changing world, and to train them that our children should be financially developed, that they know how to utilize money and to grow it, to invest and to make the best use and to stretch it, and that it goes not only as far as they need for it to go, but it expands and borders over into the next generation. It borders into the first, second, third, fourth, and multiple generations to come. Train up a child to grow socially, that they know how to live with people in this perverse world where things can sometimes be unpredictable, but know how to live in a community and society with people so that they can maximize on that. If they become business people, they know how to relate with people, maximize on the populace, and make profits that can be used to good causes and to the betterment and development of humanity and of their own lives too. And more importantly, to the glory of God. Train up a child to grow politically. What do I mean? That they know how to speak. They know how to convince people, how to draw people to them, how to attract people to them. That when people come to them, they listen to what they have to say. And what they have to say is to bring people closer to God through their word and through their action. So train up a child is not just limited to how we've been thinking conventionally all this time, may I suggest to you that training up a child means training them to know their self-worth, to identify their interests, to identify their talents, their gifts, their blessing, and everything that God has put in them. Because from the parable of the talents, we learn that the man who had the one talent, it was taken away from him. And the man with the 2 talents and the 5 talents, they were given more. Particularly, well, the Bible says the man with the 5 talents, he received that additional talent that was taken from the 1 talent guy. What am I saying? Let me put it practically for you in today's world and lay it down in layman's language. Suppose you have 2 people at a bank. The one man has a, nominal account, just a standard account. Sometimes it goes into overdraft. You have one person who's a multimillionaire, maybe a billionaire. The same bank. These 2 people will be treated differently based on the talents that are in the bank. The man with the many talents, you find that the bank will bend over backwards to keep their business, give incentives and gift vouchers and this and that. They'll have investment representatives and managers and bankers coming to talk to them on how to grow the wealth and just to make sure that they keep their business because the bank wants that money. This other person who doesn't have enough talents in the bank account oftentimes goes into overdraft. Sometimes they have NSFs. They not only pay for NSF fees, they also pay for service charges. They pay for ATM charges, bank teller charges, a whole bunch of things. Why? Because the little that they have is being taken away from them, and yet this one who has much, even more is given to them. That's the meaning of that talent. Take, for example, the athletes of this world. Take LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, all these guys, the late Kobe Bryant. Chances are those men have never had to buy a pair of sneakers or expensive shoes. Why? Because the manufacturer wants them to be a brand representative because of their talent. And somebody had to pay Tiger Woods to give him their automobile that he may drive and be a brand representative. But if you and I were to walk into a Cadillac dealership and say, give me a car, give me a Cadillac so that I can drive around and be a brand representative, the first thing they're going to say is, what is your talent? What do you have to show that we can use you as a brand representative? Train up a child to know their self-worth, to know their talent, their gift, that when they use it and utilize it, they get into positions of authority, positions of influence, positions of power. We ought to grow our children. We ought to empower them. Train up a child that if you find your child is interested in carpentry, don't try to convince them to be a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer. Let them be a carpenter if that's what they're good at. Plow into that gift. Invest in it. Plant and sow the seed of encouragement. Because that carpenter is the next real estate developer. Do you know that more than half the time, the mapping of your town, of your city, is determined by the developer, not necessarily your politician? And that is in the hands of a carpenter. That is in the hands of a bricklayer. That is in the hands of someone whose talent was tapped into. Someone who trained up the child to be confident and comfortable with what they like and what they enjoy, and they have not departed from it because that's what interests them. Maybe you have a child who's interested in cooking in the kitchen. Train them up that they become the next big restaurant chain. They become the next KFC or whatever it may be, whatever your fancy is when you go out eating. Maybe you have a child who's good with hair. She'll be the next cosmetics producer and provider. She'll be the next weave maker. She'll be the next Dark and Lovely owner. She's the next L'Oreal owner. She's the next mogul who has influence and impact in the political realm, where decisions are made for your life and my life. But not only that, they will have a voice for God and be in places of influence like Joseph did in Egypt. That Pharaoh himself sent out a decree, and he says, because of this man, we all will worship the God of Joseph, like Daniel did with Nebuchadnezzar. Again, sent a decree. We all will worship the God of Daniel because someone trained up the child and invested in their talent, developed it. So please make no mistake of it, that you take away the talents of your children by trying to box them into this understanding that you have and not let them explore the value that they are, that God has instilled in them. It is the same God who said, I know the thoughts that I have for you. Thoughts not to harm you, but to do you good and to give you a prosperous and an expected ending. That's God. The God who said, multiply and have dominion, meaning that in multiplication of generations from one generation to another, you should be having dominion. You should be having influence. You should be having an impact in life. Train up a child that they grow spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, financially, politically. Train up your child to tap into their potential and be in a place where they can convince others. Where when Christ says, go ye therefore and teach all nations, people will listen because you have a platform to teach from. People will look and say, surely this child, that child, there's something about them. There's got to be some power invested in them. And I want to be a part of that family. That people want to come to our God because of what we have trained up our children to be influential. But if we're beggars and constantly be the grassroots people, the world will look on and say, what God is this? Did you not say he is the God of a cattle on 1,000 hills? Well, how come you don't have the cattle? That's the question. Train up a child that the people may see that surely we have a God on our side. Train up a child that they may carry this word and this banner of Christ. For Habakkuk does say in chapter 2, verse 14, for the knowledge of the glory of God shall be known unto the ends of the world, like the water upon the sea. And for people to listen and to be convinced to come to Christ, we ought to have a platform. We can't just be I'm just making it by, and yeah, we're just making it by until we get to the sweet by and by. No, that's not God's intention for us and for our children, for our generations to come. May God help us. May God bless us. May God bless our families. Thank you for joining me on Nuggets of Wisdom. Please share, subscribe, comment, and we can grow and edify together. If you have questions, please feel free to ask questions. If you have subjects or topics of interest, something that is dear to you that you want us to touch on, maybe something that's affecting a loved one, a neighbor, a co-worker, or just something that you need further understanding, hey, send a request and we'll certainly touch on that subject. We don't pretend to know everything, but we'll certainly look into it and grow together. Thank you once again for joining me on Nuggets of Wisdom. You take care and see you again soon.